We are live talking customer success in an SMB universe. And let me start by letting you guys each introduce yourself. You'll do a better job than I will. And Lauren, why don't we start with you, and then we'll do Jason and Glenn.
Okay, sounds great. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Humphrey. I lead customer success at Brightwheel. Brightwheel helps early child education programs, so daycares and preschools, manage their business and improve the experience for parents and students with things like paperless billing, touchless check-in, parent communication. I am a parent user of Brightwheel. That's how I ended up discovering the company, sent them a message saying, how can I help? And here I am. And customer success at Brightwheel includes everything post-sale, so onboarding and deeper customer engagement and support.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Williams. I am the Chief Customer Officer at Guideline. Guideline provides a low-cost retirement platform for small businesses. So from solo operations to companies with thousands of employees. Our technology helps eliminate the burden of administering retirement platforms. Basically, the regulatory requirements and the management of day-to-day employee needs. We hopefully take good care of that for our thousands of customers. We have about 175 employees in multiple offices in the country, but similar to Lauren, we define our department from as post-sales, so from onboarding to back channel operations, and then support and customer success.
Terrific. I'm Glenn Weinstein, the Chief Customer Officer at Twilio. My responsibilities are similar to those that you've described, post-sales services. Twilio is a technology company. We are a cloud customer engagement platform that customers and software companies, enterprises, startups, everything in between use to build communications into their applications.
And Glenn, I think I saw the latest data. You guys have 200,000 customers?
We do. Over 200,000 customers from, yes, and over 8 million developers are on the Twilio developer network. So it's a very ubiquitous technology.
Amazing, amazing. Well, hey, let's jump right in. I was talking with Ryan and Yamini earlier about go-to-market, and we talked about how in a pre-SaaS universe, those of us that are old enough to remember on-premise software, customer success wasn't a big deal. It was called support. You dropped the technology off and somebody owned it, and they basically called you when they had a problem. In today's world, your companies live or die based on your customers' experience every day. And so customer success has been, I think, one of the underrated components of the SaaS universe that we all live in today. Can you guys just talk about that? And maybe, Glenn, I'll start with you, because you and I have known each other for a long time and been through a couple of iterations in the software world. Yeah. But just talk about how you've seen that evolve and sort of how you think about it today and what you do at Twilio.
Well, I don't remember the title Customer Success Manager 15 years ago. I think it is a relatively, last decade or so, it's become prominent and really now de facto part of the services component of any real software technology company. The tricky thing, especially for companies as you scale, is sorting out the swim lanes of what do you want your account executives, your account managers to do? What's the job of customer support, and how is all that different from what you want from your CSMs and your professional services consultants? So defining the niche that CSMs fit into is something that's still evolving, and I think companies are maybe gravitating towards a common model, but there's still quite a few models out there.
And does it ever end? I mean, you guys are a $40 billion company with over 200,000 customers. Is that an ongoing process and conversation about process and handoffs, or is it like, no, we got this?
It's an ongoing process. I wish we had it. So for a couple of reasons. I mean, so that's I think you gave our market cap there, Jeff. By revenue, we're about 1.6, 1.7 billion. Right. We'll get to 40 billion someday. Yeah, but Twilio, like every company, especially growth companies, we're constantly evolving. And Twilio just to use us as an example, I think every company has their own different dynamics, but we really grew up as a developer-first platform, and we didn't sell to enterprises. We were mostly ISVs, software companies, were building their platforms on top of Twilio. Over time, the whole idea of selling to companies, whether it's a growth company, mid-market, or a true enterprise, is a much bigger part of Twilio this year than it was last year, and it'll be a bigger part next year. So we're still sort of figuring out, how does a developer company transform itself and add this additional layer that it knows how to take care of traditional companies and enterprises that are in different industries and are not necessarily the most tech-savvy companies in the world. So our sales teams are going fast, and we're all still sorting and resorting the best roles that everybody can play.
Lauren, maybe talk a little about how you guys think about the role and where we are in the journey of defining it. And, I know it's, and I mean, you guys have tens of thousands of customers and obviously tens of thousands of parents that are using your application. So how do you think about the customer success function at Brightwheel?
Yeah, definitely. So, to give some context, our customers are primarily small businesses, and we have two main stakeholders, so administrators and owners with their staff, and then parents. And we have millions of parents that will use us for communications and then also paying their programs. When we think about customer success, I think for a little while in like the early days of customer success, it was all about like the customer success manager that was doing upsell and retention. And we've, given that we have so many small businesses, we don't necessarily have the unit economics to justify enterprise account managers. But we don't think that means we have to compromise on the experience and aligning all of what we do to the success of our customers. And so we think about kind of all of the opportunities along the customer journey as ways to improve their experience and to drive more value. And so kind of the thing that I wake up in the morning thinking about is how can we create more value at each of the touch points we already have, as sort of our first line. If we're already going to have touch points where we have to get a customer onboarded or we need to support them, is there something we can do to, like I said, help them find more value or potentially help them help themselves in the future? So if it's a support interaction, it shouldn't just be solve the issue. It should be, hey, we're also going to tell you how to look at our awesome YouTube channel where you can look at videos anytime because we know you're busy. Some of the things we're getting excited about this year in terms of where we are in the journey is that really early on, it's all about just making sure you can react to all the things that are happening with your customers. And it feels like a relief just to not have let anything fall through the cracks. But now that we've kind of gotten those repeatable processes in order, we're really excited about starting to get more proactive. And so not just maximizing touch points that exist in the journey, but finding the right places to reach out proactively. So whether someone is at risk or someone just could leverage our service or product in more ways. So that's the thing that we're really excited about this year.
Jason, how about you guys? And maybe Jason, talk about the nuances of dealing with small businesses this year. If we could get into that a little bit, because this has been kind of this has been a crazy year.
Yeah.
For all business, but particularly
definitely an understatement there, Jeff. So very similar to what Lauren mentioned. We have a similar type of customer where we almost consider ourselves a B2B2C type platform, where our clients, the people who pay the bills, are the benefits administrators or the small business owners. Usually they select a retirement platform second after they select a health benefits platform. And so in this case, we are growing with them. And then we have a second customer base, which would be the end users, the employees who are actually saving towards retirement, and they do the day-to-day administration in our platform. But similar to what Glenn and Lauren have mentioned, it's really thinking about the ways in which we can deliver value to our primary clients and our end users. So In this case, customer success, the department ends up being the advocate for the customer and the organization as a whole. And so in a way, it is their job, the department's job, to better clarify how our users are using the product, what's working and what's not. And so talking about the journey that Lauren mentioned earlier, really have a seat at the table to help drive company strategy towards something that will continue to be engaging and will drive value to those paying customers. Jeff, an example of something that took place this year that was really significant was, around mid-March, COVID, hit the country, and it became very important for us to have an assessment of the impact to small businesses. We were very conservative, and we assumed that, we had a worst case scenario. And so we built in specific features and functions that would allow us to serve our customers well. One example would be an invoice deferral program. And so the CS department led a cross-functional team to build out the mechanics and the product requirements for what an invoice deferral program would look like, so that businesses who would call in asking for leniency for their accounts would be able to get it and have it be flexible, for X number of months. And I really felt that CS knew exactly who our customers were, and so they were able to drive that conversation and lead that cross-functional project to fruition all within 1 week. So that was very exciting.
Yeah, one of the things, Lauren, you mentioned earlier is, actually, it's funny, Yamini from HubSpot had this comment earlier. She said, recurring revenue is more important than revenue. And I think it's an interesting, you sort of say, well, duh, yes, I want my customers to stick around. But in the SaaS world, in the SMB world, the connectivity between customer success and product is high, right? And so how do you guys think about, and Glenn, maybe I'll start with you, how do you, Lauren, you mentioned sort of letting customers help themselves, but it's also a thing where the product has to keep getting better and better and more intuitive so that they consume more and grow their business, which enables them to grow with you, which I know is a big part of the Twilio model, Glenn.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things there. I want to have it be said that Twilio really serves tens of thousands of SMBs. That is the absolute core of our market. Companies that have one or two developers and just start picking up Twilio and building our features into their service. And I actually love Jason's example where the customer success function is really a broad function thinking about the best interest of the customer at large. And not all of these things can be kind of white glove service. There's often thousands or tens of thousands of folks out there. And so two just quick stories on how Twilio, I think, maybe addresses or fits into this. With regard to COVID-19 and just surviving that period, I'm going back to the Jason's story. We have customers that have made spend commits to Twilio in exchange for lower pricing, lower volume pricing. And that was one of the first moves that we made, and it was led by the post-sales team, which is run by a different set of incentives than the account executive team, to just say, hey, listen, we are going to have some sort of policy and some sort of proactive outreach to customers that are not looking to move off of our platform. They're not looking to churn. They're just need to have some understanding around the commits that they've signed. And I think that was a really successful program that won Twilio a lot of goodwill through that period. Just the ability to proactively think of something like that based on the data that we had. Now, bigger picture, longer term, Twilio is not only dependent on recurring revenue and dependent on that revenue growing, but we are a consumption-based model. And I think this is the wave of the future for cloud companies. Amazon set the tone with AWS. Not everybody in SaaS is there. There's still a lot of license models out there.
We've heard of Amazon.
Yeah, good example. The pure consumption model. And it's really in Amazon's best interest to try to lower your prices. They're like the Walmart of cloud computing. Like, can we get it cheaper every quarter so that you don't have to look elsewhere? That's sort of the Twilio model. Like, if we can make it a little bit cheaper to send an SMS message or do a minute of voice connectivity, we know that ultimately that's in the best interest of Twilio and our customers. So the product does have to get better, Jeff. And then all of the focus is on giving customers more for the dollars that they're spending with us. The dollars they tend to increase because when you're on a platform that's successful, you just consume more of it. It's the beauty of the consumption model. But guaranteed, as that growth continues, customers are going to get price sensitive, and you're going to have to offer them the ability to discount as their volumes increase and find other features that are going to capture more of their budget.
And Lauren, for you guys, you're in such an interesting position where, customers are literally running their business on brightwheel. How do you think about that product versus customer success connectivity? And, I know that's a constant dialogue between you and the product team, but how do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so first of all, COVID has been, in so many ways, a very it's created a really wild year for us in that, kind of counter to what's been happening in so many places, it's driven massive digital adoption in our space. All of a sudden, we have schools saying, yeah, we need to have touch-free check-in. Parents can't go into the classroom. And so to foster trust and communication, we've got to actually use a tool that lets us show parents what's going on at school all day. And so it's been really exciting. And we similarly have had to keep up with specifically for COVID, adding health screens for students and staff. But I think this is what we've always done. We've always known that in an industry where increasingly more and more schools are using a technology, that we have to evolve as they're evolving in their use of technology. And so every year we really focus on making sure that we can produce new features, new tools for their back to school season, so that we're continuing to drive value for them, as I keep talking about. I think one of the kind of dances that has to happen, and certainly something we're working on between customer success and product and even sales, is like, if you start adding features, you can get a Frankenstein type of product. And so part of it is like helping customers go on the journey, having an opinion about where do you start? Where do you go next? What's right for your school? And so when I think about one of the places where we've got to interact and engage the most is really developing that playbook for schools, for different types of schools, so they don't just get overwhelmed by feature palooza and they feel like they're really in control of harnessing.
Use that term. I like that.
I like that.
And then I would be remiss if I didn't say that, yes, product and CS have to work together, but oh my gosh, sales and customer success. I mean, if those teams are out of balance, out of coordination, that's to me where really everything goes wrong. Because like when I think about getting value, it's all about expectation setting, and sales really plays such a tremendous role in understanding user needs and setting those expectations so that they can make the most of what we offer. So yeah.
That is a time-honored challenge. That challenge has been going on forever. And Jason, how about you guys in terms of, you're welcome to jump into the customer success and sales relationship, because I know that's an important one as well. But just how do you think about the connectivity between product and success? And I love the term feature palooza that Lauren threw out.
Yeah, that's very true in any growing company. Related to that interplay between sales and customer success, about 8 months ago, our lead for customer success developed a platform that we call Voice of Customer. I think a number of companies have this, right? But essentially, the Voice of Customer platform is an amalgamation of every single important quantitative and qualitative feedback or interaction that we receive from all of our clients. So the end users, the customers, and also the administrators who pay the bills. And so that includes information around NPS, customer satisfaction scores, product feature requests, bugs that came out in the previous month, but it's all in one document or a central repository, and it's delivered to our entire company. And so it becomes a starting point conversation for the cross-functional partners and the managers of every major department to get a pulse check on where our customers are at. And it's just, it's really become like a good starting point for these discussions around the friction points around handoffs that Lauren mentioned, but then also around the prioritization that we have, right? Where a product department may have a specific idea around how they'd like to prioritize, and the Voice of Customer platform report tells them whether or not that prioritization is actually correct, or maybe requires a little bit of tweaking. So I've found this to be a really effective method of just creating a common language that's centered around the customer for us.
And maybe for our audience, I mean, we talked about the rise of customer success as a function. Are there tools or techniques or software technologies that you guys are implementing inside of your organizations today that are mission critical that you could share with other folks who are either thinking about building this function or building or have built it and just trying to get better? Glenn, maybe I'll start with you.
I want to steal Jason's voice of the customer system. That sounds terrific. The whole idea of combining quantitative and qualitative judgments for an overall customer health score. That's a really key thing to try to drive to, I think, in customer success. We have a platform that we use. It's an extension of our CRM system. And that's something that has to evolve over time. You have to figure out to what degree are those signals predictive of churn or contraction or expansion. This is a hypothesis that you test and retest over time. The other important tool, at least for a consumption-based business like Twilio, where we're looking at thousands or millions of transactions, sometimes a day or even an hour, is really giving our customer success team deep reporting and analytics tools so that they become revenue experts. How are customers consuming our platform on a monthly, weekly, and even daily basis? Reacting to changes that we see quickly, and just getting on the phone with a customer. Hey, we noticed your usage went down yesterday. Is anything wrong? That's something you can do in the SaaS world. And when I think back at the beginning of my career to lugging around a bunch of CDs and installing the software on the customer servers, who knew what happened after that? Now everything is so instrumented now. And it really, most companies, I think, are drowning in data. So you've got to get ahead of that with a really powerful set of reporting and analytics tools. Get that data consumed by your customer success and other people, account managers, support, and so forth, so that you know.
And are you the one, Glenn, that drives that as head of customer success at Twilio? Are you driving the adoption of those data and reporting technologies and rolling them out to the teams?
I am one of many customers internally for that data. The product managers are desperate for the same information. You've got numerous people in marketing. So I think the whole company, really, this is the lifeblood of all of Twilio. Customer success is certainly a big consumer of it. Yeah.
How about you, Jason?
In terms of, I guess, technology platforms, we, go from, critical to what's been really useful. So critical for us would be Zendesk and Talkdesk, which is used for our support platform for emails and phones. We use Jira and Asana for task project management. We have a lot of work that's taking place behind the scenes within Looker that allows us to do more automated reporting. So as Glenn mentioned, right, like having metrics that the entire org agrees on for methodology, super important. Everyone has a different definition of churn. And then we make it accessible and we democratize that. And then it's just standardized. And so all those specific metrics that come from those platforms are then accessible via either Looker or some automated reporting, so everyone can access it. But yeah, besides those, we have some learning and development that takes place within a platform called WorkRamp. But those are probably the biggest platforms that we use.
It's fun to hear all these company names: Twilio customer, Twilio customer, Twilio customer.
Of course they are.
So we make tools that help us to do our jobs. Looker is definitely a key reporting tool. We also use Tableau. We use Salesforce Einstein. You name it, it is something for everybody. But it is there is a BI team at Twilio, and I think at a certain scale you have to get to the point where you don't want groups disagreeing on the basic definition of metrics. That's a realization that we've made as well.
How about Lauren? Lauren, any software tools you guys are using that are mission critical?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say we're probably at the earlier stage of evolution. And so it's a little analog. It's like, what is the right workflow? And what are our kind of critical tools that we need to conduct that? So we spend a lot of time architecting workflows in Salesforce. We really want to make sure that, especially with high volume SMB sales, that we have that connectivity between our selling motion and our onboarding motion. So that's been a huge focus. We are going to be investing more in support tooling. We're starting to get to volumes such that we need kind of better productivity, efficiency, segmenting tickets by complexity and by customer type. But again, and for us right now, it's all about what are the right workflows, what are the customer segments, and then as both Jason and Glenn mentioned, it's all about what are the metrics, how do we define them so that we can start to share those across the company, but then also share them with team members. We're at that phase of starting to hold folks accountable, and it's exciting, and it's where that high performance culture concept I think really starts to come into play, and that ultimately helps deliver really exceptional service.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of where we are. But I definitely have my kind of like shopping list as we go into annual planning of tools to kind of do more call coaching and listening, like a Gong and Chorus, and looking at tools to get more customer insight. So like the Wootrix and Pendos and user IQs. But we'll see what finance lets me go live with in 2021.
Well, as a board member, I'm supportive.
Okay, everyone heard it here.
Dave's going to be mad at me, but I'm supportive. And so, like, I guess maybe that's another question is sort of like some folks, particularly Series A companies, don't have a big customer success function, and so it's one of these things where, as they grow the company, it gets built, and they bring in a leader like the three of you. Do you have any advice for folks that are in this role or focused on this function? How do you get buy-in from the top to invest in the tools you need, to invest in the team members you need, and ultimately scale a great customer success function? Because I can tell you, even as an investor and a board member, I've had conversations with CEOs where I've said, look, we got to invest more in that because recurring revenue is more important than revenue. We've got to build up some muscle in that function. But I don't know if you guys have any tips or tricks that you could pass along to folks who may be tuned in.
Well, having been a Series A company at one point, I think getting your data straight is really important. That's something, if you screw it up early, it's really hard to fix later. Keeping it clean, having somebody that's cognizant of it, understanding what your customers are doing. The other thing, I don't think it's ever too soon to start to lay out the basic flow of a customer journey. That, this idea of if you have renewals, the renewal starts the day you do the sale, and you've got to have something going on every one of those T-minus 365. If you're a consumption-based model, you're getting a renewal every single day. That's a culture that you can incorporate even in a startup where people wear different hats. Just asking the basic questions of what leads to a customer growing their spend with us. The fun thing to do in startups, at least in our startup, was sell. That gets all the attention, but we'll focus on what happens in year 2, 3, because it's not a good picture when you have to resell all of your revenue every year.
Yep. Jason or Lauren?
Lauren?
Sure. So I'd say I love the idea of mapping out a customer journey. And I think one of the biggest things that can stop a customer success function in its tracks is overdoing it, overblowing it, making things like larger than life. For me, it's like map out the key points. Like what are the most important points that we have to get right? I think another great way to get buy-in, especially early, is to test. When you're an early stage company, growth is going to get a lot of the investments, and that's how it should be. But rather than build the perfect case for, the 10-person team, just say, hey, give me budget for one person. We got our data in order. We're going to go test a hypothesis we have, and we're going to come back to you in 3 months. And you know what? It turns out when we started to call customers whose login rates had dropped, we ended up saving some customers. Or, hey, when we called customers who had a great NPS and we talked to them about this other product we have, you know what? We sold more. And so I would just highly, highly recommend, just a spirit of testing and iteration, because that ends up doing all of the sort of gaining buy-in that you need. And so, and it also doesn't hold you back from getting out there and doing stuff. So, yeah.
Jason, any last words? We're at our half hour. We got to wrap.
This will be very quick here. Glenn and Lauren gave lots of great info there, but it really comes down to just aligning your company goals with your department's goals. And so making sure that you are moving in the same direction and the same prioritization that your CEO is. And so in this case, growth will always be sexy, and that's great. But you just have to develop a roadmap that helps support that that aggressive and proactive growth goals. For us, if it means looking at improving profit margins in the long term, it's coming up with an aggressive plan to enable customers to self-serve and develop a way that you're not scaling at the same rate as your customer growth might be. And so in this case, it becomes like a fun challenge for you as a department head to think about both productization, self-service, and then also other ways of deprecating non-critical items or workflows in your department.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it. I know people learned a ton, and appreciate the time.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.